Hi, we're on the air. Welcome, everyone. Hi, thanks for the greetings, all of you who are typing in greeting messages. Uh, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I've been thinking about, what I want to talk about today, and it's just been interesting because um, I've been working with my daughter-in-law a little bit and trying to help her with some health problems. And as I was doing this, it just really, really reinforced to me uh, something that I've believed and has been an essential part of what I do with people for about 30 years, over 30 years, which is I never think of illness as solely a physical phenomenon. Um, in fact, I think the physical part of healing isn't actually that hard. Um, you put a person on a cleanse, you get them some basic supplements, you get some herbs for particular things to get, because basically the body needs nutrients and the body needs to get rid of waste, and there are certain basic things the body needs, and you supply those things to the body, and the body has what it needs to heal. And people have existed on a very wide variety of diets and cultures all over the world and managed to be reasonably healthy. And so I think a lot of times people always think that the answer to their physical health problems is something physical. Drugs, surgery, vitamins, minerals, something that they're going to do physically. But we are also expressions of our consciousness. Okay. And if you really start to listen to people, and you do what I do, and you ask questions like, okay, when did this start? What was going on in your life when you start? You find that people inside are always struggling with problems. We all are struggling with problems. We're all struggling with things that are causing stress. Maybe we have family, problems, financial problems. Maybe, we've had serious setbacks in our lives. Somebody's died. We've lost our job. We've done these kinds of things. And I find that being able to help people with that aspect of things, is part of the healing process. I think that what we've done in our society is we have fragmented the idea of healing into, okay, here's healing the physical body, here's healing the mind, here's healing people's marriages, here's helping people with their financial problems, and we see all of these things as separate. Of course, it's much worse than that, because we, even in the area of physical healing, we have doctors who specialize in the feet or the lungs or the whatever. And I remember when my dad had a stroke and he was in the hospital, and he had, one doctor, he was developing pneumonia. So he had one doctor that was looking at his lungs, one doctor that it was his cardiologist, some other doctor that was doing something else. And they all had there was some contradictory advice from the different doctors who were working on my dad, because they were all looking at their little piece of my dad's body, all right, and making recommendations based on that little piece. And I read once a holistic doctor said most modern medical doctors have forgotten so much about how the body works as a whole that they don't even understand the part they're looking at, because the part they're looking at does not exist apart from the rest of the body. You can't treat the foot without thinking about circulation, with thinking about nerve supply, without thinking about lymphatic drainage, without thinking about how is the digestive tract working. In other words, that foot is connected to a whole bunch of systems that the foot by itself can't heal unless all those other systems are working properly too. So I've always had that view of trying to look at the body as a whole. Someone says, well, and I learned this just even from practical experiences. People will come up to me at conferences and they'll say, oh, I have a quick question. And now I really know that that's a very dangerous thing when someone says, I have a quick question, because their quick question is not necessarily something that has a quick answer. And their quick question is something like, my brother just got diagnosed with prostate cancer. What do I do? I mean, that's like, see, it's a quick question, but there's no simplistic answer to that, because the prostate, the health of the prostate is connected to the health of the body as a whole. And I don't know about the other things that are going on in that person's body. So like I said, I used to try to answer these questions. So someone would ask me a question about something and I'd say, oh, well, this might be a good remedy for it. And they say, oh, and I also have this. And I will go, wait a minute. Okay. Like, all right, the remedy I just recommended for you about this is actually not good for that. And so I learned that the only way I could make good recommendations was to actually listen and really get the complete information about what everything that was going on with that person, all their health history, all their diseases, what they're eating, get the information so I could see the big picture and then make reasonable recommendations based on the big picture. That's what the whole idea of healing is. Dr. Andrew Weil used to say that when we talk about holistic health, it's redundant because the words whole, holy, and health all derive from the same Latin roots. The whole idea of the word heal is to make whole. All right. So the holistic health is what really health is. It is holistic. It is seeing the big picture. And so I also rapidly learned that big picture includes all that's going on in that person's life, the troubles they're having, the stress they're under, the difficulties and setbacks they've had. And that broader picture, you often see, okay, they're really sick because they're unhappy, because they're sad, because they don't know how to deal with this thing that's happened to them. And that's what drove me into studying, looking deeper. I read that in the many tribes, the healer was not only the person who recommended the herbs and the things to cure the people, but he was also the marriage counselor and the counselor for the tribe. He was the wise man who knew how to help people with their problems. I remember David Winston talking about that sometimes in the Cherokee tradition, which he's part Cherokee, he says in their culture, sometimes when a person was sick, okay, then they would treat the whole tribe for that one person being sick, because that illness was indicative of a disharmony in the entire community. And there was a interesting book I read called Coyote. I think it's called Coyote Medicine. I forget the name of the author. It just popped up in my head as I was talking. This guy was studying medicine, trying to become a medical doctor. At the same time, he was studying his Native American traditions about healing. And he was like on two very weird things that are very divergent parallel paths. And so he tells this one story of this one young girl who had these, symptoms, which to him sounded very much like she was having problems with the gallbladder, maybe gallstones or something like that. But whoever had seen her as the medical doctor didn't do a very good job with diagnoses. He didn't determine what was really going on with her. So she went to the healer in the tribe, and he did a sweat lodge, and brought the family in to do a sweat lodge to pray for her healing and her recovery. And this medical student was part of this sweat lodge ceremony. Okay. And those of you who don't know what a sweat lodge is you build this little domed hut, and you cover it with blankets or whatever, and then you go heat up rocks in the fire until they're red hot, and you carry them in and put them in the middle of that, and get inside and pour a little water over it and make this gigantic like steam room / sauna that gets really, really hot. And they also drum, and they may have herbs in there or whatever. So they're in the middle of doing this ceremony, saying the prayers for this girl, and all of a sudden, the medicine man blurts out to this girl's uncle. He says, confess what you've done. And the guy breaks down and says, yes, I did it. I molested her, I blah, blah, blah. And the girl breaks down and starts crying, and whatever. And then he basically stepped in and reinforced the incest taboo, and then started talking to them about the needing to forgive and to move forward and blah, 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 and did all this work, and all the girl's physical symptoms disappeared. And I've seen this happen. I've had people who I've been helping physically with herbs, and the herbs have been helping, and I've reached a certain point, and you hit this like ceiling, right? You can't get any further. So you dig in deeper, and you do a little bit of work where you're trying to dig into what's going on with the mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you do a little healing work to tackle that, and boom, they break through and the problem disappears completely. It's happened to me many times. I do think, that it's very difficult to get to that point if you haven't been able to give them something that helps them feel better, so they actually develop some trust for you. Because if they don't trust you, they're never going to get to the level where they're going to be able to have that kind of confidence in you. And I've learned by the experience that I don't often bring up that stuff on the first visit, because other than in a very light way, but because I don't want to like scare the person off, because I find people, are scared of having to look inside and look at what's going on in their lives and deal with it. But that's led me to study things like understanding relationships. Our relationships are a big part of our health and our healing. The things that we're afraid of, the things we're angry about, the things that we're whatever, they're physically affecting our body, and we have to know how to help that. I've actually had people come in, and what I've wound up is giving them some information about what they need to do to fix their relationship with their son or daughter, or their relationship with their spouse, and whatever. And they've actually gone and done that. They've improved those relationships. They've actually used those tools I gave them, and they come back and their physical ailments are gone. So as I was thinking about this, I actually been thinking about what I want to do next year. There's one more session of this particular round of the higher perspective that I have for this year, and then I'm in the process of getting the date scheduled for next year, because I'd like to continue doing this show. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it at the same time, because it can be a little awkward when I travel and come back on like a Sunday, and then have to get up and handle the show the next morning, and don't have a little break to rest after traveling. So I may move it to a different day of the week. But I want to continue this show, but what I'm going to do with the higher perspective is going to be the higher perspective on health, and focus on healing, primarily the body, helping people heal physically with whatever tools that we want to talk about to help their physical ailments. But I've decided to start a second show. So I'm going to actually try to do alternating weeks. Okay. So the higher perspective on health, which is what I'm going to rename this show for. And the other show, which is going to be called Heal the World, Seeking Truth and Light. I'm going to alternate weeks, okay, through the year. And the other show is going to be dedicated to talking about the whole idea of stuff that I've been studying and learning of, like how to help people get along, how to help people in their relationships, how to help society, the problems that we're having in our society, because I believe all of this has answers. And I've been thinking through the preview show I want to do, and it's made me think about something that happened to me. I think it was back in like 2001. I had one of my friends, Ellen Tart Jensen, who's had been one of the presidents of IPA and has been a really good friend and associate in the International Iridology Practitioners Association. She sent me a book by Lenedra Carroll. And Lenedra Carroll is the mother of the singer Jewel. And the book was called The Architecture of All Abundance. And in this book, she talks about the fact that after Jewel had graduated from high school, she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. And her mom said, well, rather than, just jump into a job to make money, let's live out of the van, and you can have a little time to think and meditate and contemplate what you want to do with your life, and pick a direction that you want to go. And so for a couple of months, they did this, and then Jewel came to her mom and said, I'm not getting anywhere. I can't figure out what I want to do with my life. And her mom said, well, let's do a meditation on this. And she had her, get quiet inside. And she says, now imagine that there's a curtain. I hope I'm remembering all this correctly. There's this curtain in front of you. And when you pull back the curtain, you'll see yourself doing what you're supposed to do in life. And so when the curtain pulled back, she saw herself singing. And she says, I know what I want. She says, and I know the reason that I couldn't see it before. And the reason I couldn't see it before was because it was so big, I didn't believe it was possible. You understand, the reason she couldn't conceive of what she wanted to do with her life was because what she really inside wanted to do with her life was so big that she couldn't allow herself to believe that she was capable of something that big. She says, I want to be a singer, I want to write my own songs, and I want to sing in front of millions of people. So what her mom said is, okay, well, let's try this out. Just start singing. Just go start playing in, bars or clubs or wherever you can get a chance to play and sing, and see how you like it and so forth. And so Jewel started doing that. And what happened is she was playing in one of these places, and somebody came in and heard her and basically decided he liked her, and boom, and her career took off. So I remember when I read that, I thought, well, how am I holding myself back? What might I be, doing that, is impeding me from seeing what I could achieve? So I put this question into my head. I said, what if nothing were impossible, if all things were possible, if there was nothing impossible, what would I do? If all things were possible for me to do, what would I do? And the answer came back to me immediately. I would want millions of people to know what I know. And the thing is that I accepted that idea, but for a long time, I've just been trying to do the, part of that is to want millions of people to know what I've come to understand about physical healing. But there was a whole lot more to it than that, because it was this whole broader picture of all this other stuff that I had. So I set off with, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get millions of people. But I started to you know, dream and do that. But I focused mostly on the physical healing, and then started dabbling a little bit with the emotional part of healing. But nothing's happened. Well, I was meditating on this the other day, and it just hit me. Okay, because what did I do? That part, the physical and also the emotional healing, is about 20%, 20 to 30% of what I thought of when I said, I want millions of people to know what I know. And yes, I have dabbled in some of the other in my holistic perspective webinars in my member program. But I realized that I've always kind of shied away from the rest of it because it's so like all encompassing. Who are you? I mean, like the question comes, who are you to do this? And I've decided that's why I'm going to do the other show, is because I want to start teaching all the rest of the stuff that I've learned over the years, because I believe that we have to get into a bigger picture of healing than just thinking about getting rid of diseases, or even about helping people feel better about themselves and so that they're, mentally or emotionally healthy. We have to think about, how are we going to heal our society? How are we going to heal our families? How are we going to heal our communities? How are we going to heal our country? How are we going to heal the world? How do we do that? And that's what I decided I'm going to tackle in the other show, is because I don't think we can anymore afford to just think about, oh, here's a problem with a person with a physical health problem, and I'm going to help them get well with herbs and vitamins or diet or massage or whatever of their physical health problems. I think the problems are bigger than that, and they need bigger solutions, because we're all interconnected. And to the extent that we don't address that, we're not going to really be able to help people be really healthy and really happy, because we don't exist by ourselves. Any more than one organ, like my liver or my lungs, exist apart from the rest of the body, we do not exist apart from the rest of humanity. The name of the book again, Donna, is The Architecture of All Abundance by Lenedra Carroll. And it just made me think of I'm going to pull something up real quickly here on my computer, if I can find the right I want to see if I can find this thing of that my dad wrote, because I thought it was really pertaining, and I just thought of it right now, so I'm going to see if I can actually locate it. My dad wrote this poem about being about being connected to everyone, and let me see if I can find this, because I don't know, my dad loved to write poetry. Okay. Here it is. Wow, I found it. Good. All right. This is what my dad said, and I this is how I think. I think a lot like my dad in this kind of thing. He says, "The inner city, I fear it, yet I am drawn to it. Beggars, transients, dope addicts, the cast-offs and unfortunates, some beyond repair, some looking for a chance. Searching and searching, seldom finding. These are, nevertheless, my brothers, my shadow self, my opposition to perfect joy. I am more than my outward self, smug, self-contained optimist that I seem, doing the right thing, being trusted, praised, and accepted among the progressive citizens of the community, I am also the repressed in desire, the haunted, the stranger, the villain, the beggar, the transient, the unfortunate outcast seeking acceptance. I am, after all, the sinner, as well as the outer city. A man, a seeker for survival, a complex part of humanity's experience. Abandon my brothers, I cannot in their tribulations. They are my other self, still waiting to be redeemed. I by the way, my dad wrote poems on scraps of paper and napkins and little paper bags. He would go down to like the mall, and these ideas would come in his head, and he'd scribble them down on whatever he could find. And after he passed away, we found like these bags full of these things. And that was one that he had scribbled down, that he'd never fully developed, and I had never seen it before. And when I read it, I was just like really amazed, because it's very much how I feel. We're all connected, and like he says, all of the if we aren't able to get out and reach out and help with a bigger picture now, and right now we have all this contention, this division, this like which when there is contention in the body of humanity, it's like sickness inside of the body. The body is not operating in harmony together. It's not, all the different organs aren't working together cooperatively. And that happens in society. And so society gets sick, and it's hard for people to be healthy when society is sick. So that's why I want to address this on a bigger level than what we did before. Someone asked if I would consider on my web doing an emergency preparedness like I did at convention a few years ago. Very important for these stressful times. Oh, you're talking about the one I did just like on like emergency first aid and stuff. Yeah, I would be happy to really do that. Yeah, the Nature Sunshine Chinese herbs are very powerful help for helping people deal with their emotions. And someone put up on the notes the link to the book, The Architecture of All Abundance, if anybody is interested in reading that book. It was a very interesting book. So yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of things that I want to deal with. I got into healing because of my concerns about difficult times and people needing help in emergencies when modern medicine may not be available. It was only secondarily that I actually decided that in many cases, this alternative medicine, herbs and so forth, actually did things that modern medicine couldn't do. Originally, I just saw it as something, as an emergency alternative. And that's, again, like how I got started in all this. So anyway, that was my thought for today. Of course, part of the reason I do this program is to answer people's questions about specific health problems, or to kind of be able to discuss with the audience things. And so if you have a question about health problem, a question about anything that you want to discuss, feel free to type those questions in at this particular time. Now, while I'm waiting to see if anybody wants to type in a question, let me see if I can explain something that has really been troubling me. Okay? One of the things I have learned as I've gone through this journey within myself is that the emotional motivation through which we perform an action determines, okay, let's see if I can explain this. You have like a thought, all right? And you, in order to bring that thought into action, it requires emotion. Emotion is the mover, okay? And so I can put a thought into action with anger. I can put a thought into action with fear. I can put a thought into action with sadness and pain and suffering. Okay, and I will act. Okay, those emotions will move my thoughts into action. But what I have figured out is that when I take an action based on fear, I'm putting the vibration of fear into the action, and that taints that action so that it puts out an energy or a seed that comes back into my life as fear, as more fear. In other words, when I am acting because of fear, what I generate in the world is more fear. When I'm acting out of anger, what am I generating in the world? I'm generating more anger. If I'm acting out of grief and weakness, what I'm putting into the world is more grief and weakness. In order to, when you truly find the right place from which to act, okay, you will be acting from motivations of love. You will be acting of motivations of hope. You'll be acting on a motivation of joy or happiness. In other words, there will be an emotion that is moving you to action that is going to create more of that kind of emotion in the results that it brings back. So let me explain this in a very, very practical way. Okay? If I'm trying to be good, all right, and do good things in the world because I'm terrified that God is going to punish me and throw me to hell if I don't, okay, then my actions in the quote unquote goodness that I'm doing in the world are tainted by fear, and the people that I will be trying to help will feel my fear, okay, and they will sense that, and what will happen of it will not be anywhere near as good or as powerful as if I can bring myself into the place of love and peace and act from there. So what I see happening a lot in our society is people are getting angry. They're getting angry. They're getting frustrated because you know, when people are angry at you, you get angry back at them, and this fight, and you get more and more division. And if that has a very polarizing effect on people, and it does not, you cannot achieve real goodness in the world based on anger. If you're angry about something, all right, then what's happening is there may be truth. There's truth in the fact that the situation that you're looking at may be bad, but because you're feeling anger, the solution or the fix that you have in your brain is not correct, or you wouldn't feel angry. Because if the solution to that problem that you're feeling angry about actually came to you and you knew the right thing to do, you would be able to act on that situation with perfect love and peace and joy. Because if you act on it in anger, you will create more problems. And I see this all the time, and it's very, very hard because you try to post something, like sometimes I post something on I try posting something on Facebook the other day about trying to make a point about, the problems we're having on our southern border, and people reacted. And I was trying very hard to be calm and to put forth information and say, look, we need to consider this. We need to look at the big picture. How do we solve this? I wasn't even necessarily, saying what's right or wrong, but people get so, that they're emotionally triggered, but they don't understand that when we're acting out of all of these negative emotions, we are sowing more negative emotions into the world, and we're never going to be able to fix the problem. And that's part of the kind of thing I want to talk about next year when I get into this sort of thing. So let's look right now. Let's say, okay, someone says a checklist would be great. I know you're an expert on emergency preparation. Want to know? Okay, I will do that. I will make a note, and I will do a class next as quickly as I can put one together. I mean, I've done it before, so it shouldn't be too hard. I'll put a class together on emergency preparedness and include a checklist and so forth, and and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that on. I might even want to talk about a little bit on the next holistic perspective, because we are in a situation where there are going to be some major changes coming. The upheaval and the things that are happening, there's going to be some, bouncy times. And I think being prepared would be a good idea for everybody to have some things to be prepared. Someone says, what can I do about a sty on the eyelid that has been there for 3 months? Have you tried? I've tried everything to make it go away. Do you think it might be emotional? Well, what I tell people, and this is a standard thing I do, okay, I've done it with myself, is when you've tried everything physically and it doesn't go away, consider the fact that there is probably an emotional reason for it. And when it's something to do with you, and you think about the part of the body where the problem is, and you think about what is that part of the body, what does it do? What does it accomplish? Okay, eyes, what do eyes do? Eyes allows you to see. So you might ask yourself, okay, do I want to see clearly? Is there something in my life I don't want to see that I am, want to? I mean, you start thinking about this, that what might be going on in my life that's making me have an issue with seeing things. I did this once with my ears when I was having problems with my ears, and I wound up asking myself the question, what would I hear if I could hear clearly? Because my ears were plugged up and I couldn't hear. There was ringing in the ears and they were stuffed up. And what would I hear if I could hear clearly? And I heard the things, I bounced back to a memory of somebody, of thinking about negative things somebody was going to say to me. And the idea that I'd actually said, I don't want to hear this anymore. And the next day my ears had plugged up. Literally, I'm literally telling you that I realized that I had said with incredible intense emotion, as I was thinking about anticipating the negative things this other person was going to say to me, I had said, I don't want to hear this anymore. And it was so emotionally intense that actually my ears the next day started plugging up, and I actually could not get my ears unstuffed for 2 months until I thought that. And then I started to work on that problem, and then they cleared up. And I've seen that kind of thing happen before. The problem is I can't tell you precisely what it is. What I do when I'm talking to people is I dig in and start asking, well, when did this first happen? What was going on when it started happening? And started kind of helping them explore to see if there is a problem. Now, let's talk about, someone asked about ringworm. Let's talk about just parasites in general. All right. If you think about parasites, okay. What are parasites? Parasites are creatures that are feeding off of your energy, off your life force. And they are, which means that your immune system, your ability to defend yourself, your ability to fight back against something that wants to take from you is weakened. And I find chronic infections, parasites, and a lot of things are tied in with a person's ability to stand up for themselves, with their self-esteem, with their, now understand again, there is nutritional aspect of this, is the body getting the nutrients it needs for the immune system to function properly? Is the colon healthy? That sort of thing. But there's also the aspect of the emotional side. Like a mother came to me and said, okay, I got 5 kids. All right. I feed them all the same. 4 of them are healthy, but the other one is constantly getting sick. And I looked at her and I said, he's the one with the worst self-esteem, isn't he? And she goes, how did you know that? All right. In other words, he's the one who has the most problems with feeling good about himself. Therefore, he has the most problems with feeling like he's worth defending. And therefore, he has the harder time energetically signaling to his immune system, I can fight this. So anytime there's any kind of invader in the body, you need to look at the person's physical defenses, their immune system, their the nutrients that help the immune system, the herbs and things help the immune system. But you also have to look at their psychological immunity, which is, how do they feel about themselves? Are they able to stand up for themselves? Are they able to fight back against things that are harming them and so forth? And I'm again illustrating the way I think, and I don't have blanket answers for any of this, because the answers are usually found as I talk to people and help to figure this stuff out. Someone says, when I sleep under a ceiling fan, I have started waking up with a headache on my right side of my head. My right ear stopped up in my right. I will run water. Can't sleep while hot is why I run the ceiling fan. I'm working on healing my colon. What would you recommend I do besides not sleeping under a ceiling fan? I've slept under a ceiling fan as long as I can remember, and this just started. Oh, wow. Okay. That's a really, let me think about that one and see if I can get back to that, if anything comes with me, because the movement of the air going over your head. I'll contemplate on that a little bit. Someone says, I've been struggling with anger for a few years now. I'm quick to anger, mostly with my kids and family of origin. My brother, mother, and father are big instigators. I try to limit my time and conversations with them. And then she's listing a bunch of things that she's done to help with her body and doing detoxification. And doing foot detoxification and so forth. One of the things that you want to realize that if you're angry, okay, and this is one of the things you can go actually look on my free online emotional healing class in module 2. I covered all the emotions, including discussing about anger. There are 3 things about anger that you want to be aware of. 1, behind all anger is hurt. If you're angry, you're in pain. All right? You're hurting. And you need to get in touch with the hurt, because you're using the anger as a way of covering the hurt of not. And the anger is also a plea for empathy, because you're hurting because of what other people are doing to you. You're wanting to hurt them because you want them to feel how you feel. You want them to understand the pain that they cause you. And therefore, you're seeking for empathy by being angry. Now, the problem is that when because they're hurting also, and then they're doing things that are hurting you, and then you're getting hurt and hurting them back, the hurt escalates. And this is a microcosm, what I'm trying to talk about, of the macrocosm of what happens in society. All right? You wind up escalating pain, which escalates anger. All right. So the third thing is you need to go find that video and read about setting boundaries, because the answer to anger is always to find where your personal boundaries are and learn how to set personal boundaries. And once you set personal boundaries, there is no reason to be angry anymore. You completely lose the reason to be anger. And I like I said, I discussed that in online 2018 online emotional healing training program on YouTube. In module 2, look up the 2 sessions I did on anger and whatever. And I'm going to be covering more of this kind of thing in the second show I'm going to start next year. Okay. Someone says, when I speak to people about holistic health, a large percentage of the time I just get the response, doctors say this is malarkey, or just refusal to listen to anything because their healthcare professional at some point discouraged them from using natural solutions. So do you have some advice on how to get past that with people? My attitude is I don't even try to get past with it. If someone is interested, I help them. If they're not interested, I say, okay, that's fine. If you're happy with the care you're receiving from your doctor or whatever, then that's just, if you ever want if you're not and it's not working, you might want to consider trying an alternative. That's all I do, is just put the offer there, put the bug in their ear. I can't force someone to accept my help. Okay. It's taken me, all right. I've been with my wife coming up on 2 years of her and her kids moving in with me. And my wife was really, really skeptical of me with healing stuff. And just a few times I said, just let me try it. Just let me try it. And now she's starting to believe I know what I'm talking about, and she's encouraging her kids. And so little by little, I'm making inroads into doing, but it's just been very, very patient. And the best thing you do is just set a good example by being healthy yourself, make the offer, and then if they don't, okay, all right, fine, just whatever. Someone said the Keep Cool flower essence, which the one lady has used, Keep Cool. It is helpful for making a breakthrough on being able to help you realize why you're angry. But you have to do the inner work. You have to learn how to set the boundaries. Now, my thing on a sty in the eye has always been to actually use like either the silver in the eye, or I've used golden seal in the eye, or I've used tea bags, or one other thing I've used is the contents of a vitamin A and D. I poke a pinhole in the capsule and just rub it around the eye, not in the eye, but around the eye to build up the immune system around the eye. Those are all physical things. I didn't talk about that because she said she tried a lot of physical things and wanted to know if there was a possibility that there could be an emotional one. And I was saying, yes, it's possible. It could. Okay. Someone's basically giving something. Yeah, the Silver Shield is, I think Silver Shield is very helpful for the styes. Someone quotes Psalms, let anger alone and leave rage. Do not show yourself heated up only to do evil. It's very hard sometimes when people are in pain to do that. My wife and her third son tend to very easily get into spats. They provoke each other, and they both are hurting. Understand, they're both in pain of their relationship, and so it's very easy for them to trigger the pain in the other person, and and carry on the pain. And so I'm having to be a lot trying to help soothe that situation and pour the oil on troubled waters. And one of the things that you can do, I really highly recommend reading Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. And he also has a little book about anger. I think it's called The Surprising Purpose of Anger, because he talks about some strategies for learning to respond to people who are expressing anger. And one of the things that you do is you try to empathize with them. Like you say, instead of listening to the words that they say, one of the problems we get is we are triggered by the words. Okay. And so the words but if you drop out of the words and you learn how to get down in your heart and you look at the person and you think, what are they feeling? Not what are they saying, but what are they feeling? Because it's always about feeling. We think it's about the things that are being said. It's actually about the feelings that are underneath that. And you say, you seem very hurt over this, or you seem very angry over this. You go, yeah. Because as they start to feel that you're sensing what they're feeling, because what they're saying is really not trying to communicate. A lot of times when people are saying things, what they're saying is completely illogical. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's completely wrong. But they're not trying to communicate logically. They're trying to communicate something they feel. So if you can empathize with the feelings, you can help to diffuse the energy, so forth. I don't know about Silver and Down syndrome. I really don't. Suggestions for EMF protection. I used to get Cook's diodes. Then I've gone to a couple of different places. Kim sent me a place to get some diodes. I have it somewhere in my thing. I also bought some from another company called Juvla or whatever. But there are little things you can get. I have them on my cell phone. I have them on my laptop to help with EMF protection. But that's a topic I could address in a future broadcast, and have some resources where you could find some things to protect you from EMFs. Someone says, I have learned the hard way of trying to help people. I have learned so much from you and tried to pass it on to my brother. He is not ready to hear what I have to say and attacked me full force. I learned to feel the person out before giving them information. That very, very good, Shari. That is exactly what I'm saying is, I've said a few things to family members sometimes too. You care about them, you see them going down a particular path, and you know that's not the best path. But if they aren't ready to hear your advice, you soften up, you back off. Like, with my daughter-in-law, I actually had I kind of guessed what was going on with her, but I encouraged her to go to the clinic. They were visiting us for the holidays and get ultrasound. And the ultrasound verified what I thought was going on. But the advice the doctor gave got her really upset because it was just really not even like blah, blah. And I said, okay, listen, I can do this. And at that point, see, she's ready to hear. There's an old axiom. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I've learned that you can't force people to understand anything. You have to wait for what I call teaching moments, when a person's open, when they're questioning. And I've read about this thing in Native American called coyote teaching. It's where you drop little crumbs, okay, of information and see if someone picks up on it. And if they do, you drop another little crumb, but you don't try to give them the whole thing. Just boom. And just if they don't receive it, boom, like that's okay. But if they then, and what you're doing is you're trying to evoke in them curiosity. You're trying to get them to what if. And so what'll typically happen, and like I say, I'm in this little program, I'm really trying to get into what I want to get into in the show I'm going to create next year, is if a person's over here and you directly confront their opinion, right? Bram, do you know what you do? People don't like being confronted. They don't like to be wrong. They don't like to think that you're saying they're wrong. So their defenses go up and they reinforce their position and hit back. So you have to learn how to subtly kind of like understand whatever, to slide around their defenses and get them to be curious, like, what's going on? What's really? And then when they're curious, that's the signal that you can give them another crumb. But you give them whatever crumb they're ready for and no more. And then gradually you move them along. It's very, very important to understand that with dealing with people, because you're never going to get anywhere by confronting people, arguing with them, or trying to cram information down their throat. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, a person who talked to me about that many, many years ago, I was 19 years old when someone talked about this, and they said the corollary to that, the other half of that, so because the phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, refers to the mindset of the student, that when I'm ready, the teacher will appear. The corollary for the teacher is this: do all you can to prepare for the call, but wait to be called. In other words, you arm yourself with all the information and everything that you're going to be able to help people when they call. In other words, when the student is open and ready, but you have to wait until you hear the call. And what do you do? Put out to people, put out in your head that with the information you have, that ask God to bring you to bring the people to you, open the doors to bring the people to you who are ready to hear what you have to say. And if they're not ready to hear what you have to say, move on and go to the next person, and keep looking for the people who are ready. Someone says, I tell people I teach regarding natural alternative. If they're interested, and remind them God's pharmacy was what I have been successful, and as they have been used before pharmaceuticals were developed. So if chemical medicine is working for them, that's great. But if they ever want to try natural alternatives, glad to help. I come from a very large medical family, and now they all take NSP as their first choice. See, you're saying exactly right. You let people know who you are, what you do, you know, whatever. If they're not ready to hear, that's fine. A few little, like the crumb, what you just talked about is a crumb. You know, before there were pharmaceuticals, there was God's pharmacy, the herbs that the Creator created for us. Boom, that's it. Leave it. That's you plant that little thought in someone's mind. I'm doing this all the time with my stepsons. Okay, I plant little seeds of thought in their mind. Okay, they might not be ready to hear it all the time, but I just drop these little tidbits out, and when they're ready, maybe that little seed will go boom, and oh, you know, he said this. So you plant the little seeds and you see where they catch, you know, and you cultivate where they catch, you cultivate it. Where they don't, you move on. What kind of protection would I recommend for spiritual attacks? Prayer and also faith. And we need to talk in one of these sessions about understanding what faith is. I'm out of time for today, so I'm going to end it. Thank you for all of you who've asked questions, made comments. I love the interaction. That's one of the reasons why I want to do this program, and why I do this, is because I love being able to interact with people, talk about people, what people are interested in, and ask questions. So thank you all for being part of this. Tonight, for any of you who are not part of my emotional healing training program, tonight I am delivering probably one of the most important messages about the emotional healing, about the 3 levels of human consciousness and the 3 levels of love. This is a very, very powerful message. I probably could spend 3 hours on it. I'm going to cover it in 1 hour, but I'd like to encourage you, if you're not watching that, I will, of course, be posting a link to it on Facebook after it's been done. But I'd like to encourage all of you to watch that, because it's one of the most powerful understandings I was ever given. And I think it will really be eye-opening to you if you've never heard it before, about the 3 levels of love, the 3 kinds of love, but also the 3 levels of human consciousness and the 3 levels of human interaction. They're all interconnected. And once I did that, that helped me so much with understanding people, relationships, spirituality, everything. It was like a major breakthrough for me. So I encourage you to check that out if you can. Anyway, 1 minute over my time. So I will catch you again in 2 weeks, and I will also be sending out the link for the start of next year's show. And some of you have selected auto subscribe. And if you did select auto subscribe when you signed up for this series, it will auto subscribe you into the next one. So otherwise, you'll get a link from me with how to subscribe to next year's program. Thanks again, and goodbye.